Morning, everyone. When I was a child growing up in South Africa with my mother and my sister, we didn't have a television until I don't know, I must have been about 10 or 11. Television only came to South Africa when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I had some friends who had a television, and I remember John Paul and their son, who was my friend, um, pretty much turning the box into some kind of fort because it was a really big box. And we used to go around to theirs on a Friday evening and have fish and chips sometimes and watch the 2 hours of television which were on. And one of those hours was Bonanza and other kind of westerns from that time. But South Africa came late to television, and we as a family came late to television as well. But I remember the radio. I remember listening to the radio quite a lot. And I remember getting my first radio. I must have been about 9 or 10 years old, and it was an incredibly precious thing. I might even have been younger. And I used to listen to the radio in my room. And there are some things that are just sort of markers for me of that time. A number of South African radio programs. One of them called Jet Jungle, sponsored by Black Cat Peanut Butter, about this kind of hero called Jet Jungle. It was about 15 minutes long. It was on most days. I also remember listening to The Goon Show, because The Goon Show was on quite regularly, and I just loved The Goon Show. 3 years ago, I had a sabbatical again, just before I began to work in Haxby and Wigginton and at Central Methodist in town. And as part of that, I did some travelling in Scotland. I climbed some mountains and spent some time wild camping. I've talked a bit about that before. But one of those trips I came back from, and Rebecca was already in Germany with Lucas at her parents' house. And so I drove south, picked up Matt on the way, just not far away, and we drove down to down to Dover, got the ferry across to Dunkirk, and then drove across about another 4 or 5 hours into Germany to Rebecca's parents. And I introduced Matt to The Goon Show on that trip. I bought some CDs, and he and I spent most of an entire day, just the two of us in the car, road tripping, and quite a lot of that listening to episodes of The Goon Show, and just roaring with laughter together in the car. It's one of my fondest memories of just the two of us together. So last night we watched episodes 3 and 4 of series 1 of Blackadder, which again I've not watched all of, but the bits that I've seen, and the kind of just brilliant sarcasm and wordplay in that just tickles me. And Matt is now old enough that he gets it all, and so we watched 4 episodes now across 2 evenings of Blackadder with the whole box set to go. So why talk about these things? Well, because I think that humour is an essential part of our human condition and human experience, and positive, just positive experience of our lives. It's good to laugh. It's good to smile. It's good to be tickled by things that are funny. I have a complete collection of Gary Larson's cartoons, The Far Side, from the sort of late 80s and early 90s. I also have an almost complete collection of Bill Watterson's Calvin and Hobbes. Beautiful cartoons about this little boy, Calvin, and his stuffed toy tiger Hobbes, who he imagines into life, and how they are the antitheses of those mindsets, those worldviews, where Calvin just takes an incredibly dim, deterministic view of the world, and Hobbes just laments the human condition all the time. So what makes you laugh? What makes you laugh? And in all the seriousness of these posts over quite a long time now, I think it is important to say that that continuing to laugh is a really good thing to try to do. And sometimes that just comes upon us. Sometimes humour just happens, and we get to enjoy that. Just monkeying around with my boys and with Rebecca, we often find ourselves laughing at things that are spontaneous. But sometimes we need to choose to almost subject ourselves to things that might cheer us up a bit, or that even things like The Goon Show are funny in themselves, but bring back memories of particular moments and times in our lives that may have been more carefree or easy. I heard someone once say, and I thought about it at the time, and it stuck with me, that Jesus must have had a really good sense of humour. All the Jewish people I know are, it's a humorous culture. It's a culture that is witty, and of course I'm generalizing, but yeah, even just the fact of Jesus as a public speaker, Jesus as a public figure, holding people in the deep truths that he was sharing with them, there must have been a lot of mirth built into that. And some of the most deeply serious passages we read sometimes in the Gospels, we read them in a way that has them be philosophical and heavy, and when in fact Jesus uses hyperbole, he says ridiculous things as examples that must have left those who were listening to him kind of laughing. And he uses examples of current situations and how they might be turned on their heads in a way that must have tickled people. And I'm not going to trot out a whole list of those now, but even something simple like, you've heard that it was said, forgive. Talking about forgiveness. Jesus saying something like, well, take the log out your own eye before you worry about the speck in your neighbour's. Again, we could read those words very harshly, or we could read them as a kind of ridiculous joke to make a serious point. Because you can imagine a giant great log in your eye. The point is made. The point is made with humour, not with judgment. And everyone gets it. And those who are offended, well, they have the work to do to ask what it is about themselves that they're so precious about, that they can't begin to be a little self-deprecating in their religious seriousness. So short and sweet today. What makes you laugh? What makes you laugh? Rebecca and I watch quite a lot of comedy on television. We really enjoy lots of different things that are clever observational comedy, as well as just some of the downright ridiculousness of some comedians and the absolute rubbish that they talk. But that is still just really funny. A really good release, a really good bit of levity at the end of what may have been a difficult day. What we don't like is comedy where people are unkind. And often, especially when they're unkind about their children or their spouse, when they just dive straight into just two-dimensional stereotypes of teenagers and wives and husbands and in-laws and do all of that stuff, which is, I don't know, for me very tired and lacking imagination, actually. Lacking imagination. There's more than enough that's funny in the world without that being at the expense of other people in a way that is a little bit cruel or unloving, disrespectful. So what makes you laugh? What makes you laugh? What helps you to not take yourself too seriously? Are you able to laugh at yourself even in a way that is an antidote to the way you might frustrate yourself? What might you want to choose or need to choose today or tomorrow or the next day or every day? To choose to find, to look at, to revisit, to explore that might bring a smile and some laughter into your life. There's an image of many images of Jesus, but one of those that it's been around for decades. But there's an image. It's sort of a line sketch of Jesus laughing, sort of head thrown back and laughing. It's a very simple picture. And I think the reason why it struck so many people who've seen it is because it's unexpected. We read the words of Jesus in church so often, and we read them with solemnity, and we read them with gravitas, and we read them as though they are words on which the whole universe hangs to an extent. And I suppose in some ways they are. But at the same time, we put them into the mouth of someone who is less human than we are so often in the way that he gets to express those things. And less human because he's not allowed to be funny. He's not allowed to crack jokes. He's not allowed to tease a little. He's not allowed to say silly things as part of making serious points. He has to be deep and profound and extraordinary and somehow distant and different. I don't think so. So have a laugh today if you can. If the last thing you feel like is laughing, maybe there's a choice to make somehow about, as I've said, finding things that have made you laugh in the past and exploring those, or looking for some comedy, looking for some hilarity, looking for some levity that might just be an antidote to how you are feeling today, or might enhance the fact of today being in the UK, certainly a beautiful day, full of promise for us, at least of sunshine and warmth, and the cleanest air we've had for a long time, that's for sure. Enjoy today, and have a laugh if you can. Yeah. Help someone else have a laugh if you can, and know that one of the paradoxes of being alive, and one of the paradoxes of having faith, and both of them are true, whether one or both are true in your life, well, certainly the first has to be true, you have to be alive, is that we should take ourselves very seriously, but we should also not take ourselves very seriously at all. That God takes us very seriously, but God also doesn't take us very seriously at all. And that's not about a lack of care or attention, just that there is space, there is room, there is, in the midst of the precious uniqueness of today, and this unique life that you live and I live and we're living together at the moment, in the midst of all of that, let's hold ourselves lightly, and let's have a chuckle at ourselves, at the world, and if we can do so kindly, even at each other. So I pray for today that you will have an overactive humour gland. I don't know if there is such a thing. Pretty sure there isn't. But I pray that you'll have, I hope that you have, I want you with all my heart to have a day that includes a proper smile. And maybe the kind of laughing that becomes undignified because you end up snorting. There may even be a little bit of tears, or if you have one of those proper laughs today, let it be the gift that it can be. So enough. I've said the same things 3 times again, and 3 times is enough. Might even be 4 by now. Now it's just become 5. Have a great day. Have a chuckle, and I'll be back again tomorrow.